Hey everyone, it's Morella Manelli here, and today I'm going to show you how to achieve 90s chunks with a modern twist using all Kenra color. So stay tuned and check it out. This is my model Morgan, and as you can see, she hasn't had her hair touched up in about 5 months. And what we're really looking to achieve is giving her a modern 90s vibe by touching up her highlights and then really richening up this copper shade. I'm starting out by taking a 4-inch wide section, utilizing the arch of the eyebrows as a guide to create my mohawk section. And I bring that all the way back down past the apex, and then bring that section all the way down right behind the ear and make sure each section is clipped away. I then start out by taking a V section right in the back, and this is where I will get my highlights started. For this project, I'm using Kenra Professional Simply Blonde Blue Powder Lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer. I'm utilizing a lower developer since I will be doing color and highlights all at the same time. Because we're going for a more bold look and we want her highlights to really pop, I am going to take slices throughout the back just to get it started. These V-sectioned slices though, however, are going to veil over the back of the head so that way there's not a stopping point on the very bottom, even if we were to put in lots of layers throughout the back. I'm applying first about 4 inches away from the roots and then stroking the product right on up to feather it so that way it has a softer line of demarcation. I make sure to thoroughly saturate these sections, and a little tip is that when you're working with slices, make sure that they are thin enough so that way the product can thoroughly go through to the other side, and that way the lightener can do its job of lifting to the desired level. Once I was done applying my slices throughout the back in my V-shaped section, I'm then going to move on towards the front. Traditionally, 90s chunks were really heavy in the front, so this is just where the modernization comes into play. So I decided to go in with a little bit of a lighter weave right on the hairline with 2 back-to-back baby lights. Now, if you wanted to go full-on 90s chunks, then definitely just take back-to-back slices in this section, but I thought I would just make it a little bit more of a softer and more wearable for 2020. A little tip when doing these baby lights right in the front hairline is to comb the hair entirely back so that way you have a much more cleaner working space. This is going to give you a nice tension as well as really being able to isolate the hair so that way you don't have any other hair to mess with while you're trying to foil. This is a really great technique because again, it just isolates it and it gives you that proper tension so you can get the foil really nice and close. And I would highly recommend that you take your time in this section because this is definitely an important piece of hair that your client is going to see first. So you want to make sure that it's just perfect and right. Now to get started on the actual chunks, I'm going to go about 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches back from the previous section. So the way I like to start my chunks is start from the back side and then work my way up. So I'm already guesstimating about where they're going to land. And then you're just going to do about 2 to maybe 3 back-to-back slices. So the width of your chunk is completely up to you, but you already know where they're going to begin and end because we already did a pre-sectioned mohawk section. So that's really where you're going to get that pop of blonde in addition with the slices as well as the square space that we're working with. For my application of these slices, I am taking the lightener all the way to the root. Now, if you want it to be a little bit more diffused, I would definitely go in with the application much like I did the back slices by feathering the product right on up instead of taking it right at the root. But the reason why we did this here is for a couple reasons. 1, we are going to slightly shadow root it, and 2, we want really to evoke that 90s vibe by taking the chunks all the way towards the roots. Now you can also see here she has some previous chunks that were attempted by a previous stylist, and
now I'm kind of going through and doing a little bit of a color correction here. So I am isolating those previous chunks, just putting them aside because they are previously lightened. And then I'm going in on the hair that was not lightened and applying that lightener. A little helpful trick for me is that when I am doing some color correction with the lightener is I will apply a foil in between the hair that was not lightened and lightened. So I'll make sure to thoroughly saturate on the original foil with the lightener and then place an additional foil right on top and then just use conditioner to get the hair to stick. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because later on we are going to be putting in color in between her foils. So I really need this hair to be tucked away so that way the color that's placed in between her foils does not touch the mids and ends of those previously lightened pieces. To complete this top section, I'm going to do a total of 3 chunks. So you'll notice that I'm doing those back-to-back slices, and then I'm going to finish off with my 3rd chunk right on the crown. And then just to finish off and complete it, I am going to add in some very chunky weaved pieces. So the slices, I just really wanted those to pop, just again to evoke that 90s vibe. And then right underneath that last 3rd chunk, I'm gonna go in with a very heavy, chunky weave. So I'm still doing lots of color correction, but I wanna make sure that all of this hair that is in this foil is nice and safely tucked away with both lightener and conditioner, because we are gonna go through and color in between each of these foils with permanent hair color. My model is a natural level 5 and she wants a rich copper shade, so we decided to go in with equal parts of 6BC and 6RC with equal parts of 20 volume developer. So she gets 1 level of lift and a nice vibrant result and deposit on some of those previously lightened pieces. I'm starting out by applying her color in the back, and this is just because it'll give me a much more cleaner working space. So I start out by applying onto the roots and then bringing the hair down and applying the color on the mids and ends and just thoroughly saturating. I'm gonna try to get this on in less than 15 minutes from roots to ends. And I'm not worried about hot roots or anything because we are only lifting 1 level at the roots and then just depositing and also richening up and brightening her mids and ends. And this formula is perfectly suited to have 20 volume from roots to ends. Once I was done applying to the underside and the back and the sides, I made sure to thoroughly saturate in between each of the foils and just taking nice thin sections, applying roots to ends.
Now that her foil and color is all in, we're just gonna process her room temperature for 30 minutes and then get ready to do her final glaze. For my model's final glaze, I decided to mix up 2 different formulas for a very slight color melt. So I'm mixing up 8GB and demi-permanent at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer. And then I'm gonna mix up a separate formula of 10G with a few ribbons of 8C at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer. I started out by applying the 8GB formula onto the first 2 inches of where the highlights were placed. Once I was done applying that formula, I then took the 8G with 8C formula and applied that throughout the mids and ends, making sure to thoroughly saturate. I applied this formula onto towel dried hair and then processed her room temperature for 15 minutes. And here's the final result on how to achieve 90s chunks with a modern twist. So just to recap, what we went in with for her highlights was Kenra Professional Simply Blonde Blue Powder Lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer. And then in between her foils, we went in with permanent hair color, equal parts of 6BC and 6RC with equal parts 20 volume developer, and then processed her for 30 minutes. And then for her final glaze, we went in with 8GB at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer, right into 10G with a little ribbon of 8C and 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer, and processed her for 15 minutes. So I really hope you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time.